Message, he said emerge, he's working at emerge, he said it's a bit busy right now, he'll get here as soon as he can.
Okay,
But anyway, he extends his apologies, it looks like.
We can understand. We're small town people.
Yeah,
It's
But-
better used there than you.
yeah, absolutely.
so thank you everybody for coming to the committee of the whole meeting on Tuesday, January 10th. We respectfully acknowledge that we're holding this meeting on traditional territory of the Quabbin people, so Gaelic Castle. I'd like to call the meeting to order and approval of the agenda as presented. Councillor Tipperary, Councillor Dugas. And we have a delegation of Lisa Stewart, CCPA, MPAS Director, BC, Canadian Association of Physician Assistants, regarding physician assistants.
That's right.
So thank you for coming out from Courtney
Yeah.
and Coma. Welcome. So I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just gonna check to see if that was Alex messaging me again. Okay, he said he should be here in 9 minutes.
I like that. To the minute, yeah. Start a timer.
So Alex and I have been working together, for I guess, since August. He accepted a position here, position here. But obviously there's been a healthcare need. I know you guys have been struggling to keep your emergency open at all times. And he's worked with physician assistants previously when he worked in Manitoba. And I've been advocating to bring PAs to British Columbia. So we put our heads together and thought that Port Hardy would be a great place to bring PAs into. So you can see from my, I guess my handout, there's a little bit about what PAs are. We can classify ourselves as mid-level care providers, or another good way of thinking about it is, PAs are like an extra set of hands for a physician. We work closely with physicians in partnership with physicians. Our license and our practice is a direct extension of a physician. How we think that Port Hardy could benefit from a PA is it would, well, we have actually 3 PAs that are interested in working in the Northern Ireland, I guess, communities. One PA has committed to, and said she's available June 1st to come work here. And it would, well, effectively enable Port Hardy to keep your emergency open. It would allow Alex to, say work in the clinic, and then allow this PA to work in Emerge, or a PA could pick up Emerge shifts overnight, and Alex could, sleep and when he's needed, and called on by the PA. So we're very highly skilled medical providers that can independently see and treat patients and also prescribe medications. Our role can be considered similar to, say, a training resident might be, or some people have compared us to nurse practitioners. Although our roles can be similar and kind of at the similar sort of level, we are very different in the fact that we're not independent providers. We're an extension of a physician. All of this to say Alex and I have been working really hard to bring a PA here to Port Hardy. And we have the support of First Nations Health Authority, Doctors of BC, the College of Physicians and Surgeons has said that absolutely, as soon as the Ministry of Health gives the green light, they can easily we're regulated by the College of Physicians and Surgeons, just like doctors are, and they can make that happen very quickly. The barrier continues to be, and has been for many years now, Adrian Dix and the Ministry of Health. And so we've been appealing to Dix as well as the Ministry of Health, and we have a proposal we're going to put forward to allow Dr. Nataros to hire a PA here in Port Hardy to work with him in his practice. And we need Adrian Dix to give the green light so we can make this happen. Does anyone have any questions about what a physician assistant is and how we can effectively work here in Port Hardy? You can see a little bit about the background of PAs. There's now probably over 900 PAs, close to about 1,000 PAs that work across Canada. This is not a new healthcare profession. There's actually PAs that work across globally. It is a newer health trade, absolutely, and that's rare in this day and age. We all know what a doctor is. We all know what a nurse is because they've been here since the dawn of time. PA trade is absolutely a bit newer, particularly here in Canada, but it's a proven model that is employed already in this country.
Wanted?
Hi, Alex.
Thanks, sorry. Super late.
Yeah, no, not at all.
That was 4 minutes, not 9 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm saying 9 minutes, but fast car, right? But I'll stop and let Alex introduce himself.
Oh, sure. Sorry to be late. Thanks for having me, or
Thanks.
worship, I guess I'd say. Councils. Yeah, so I'm Alex Nataros, one of the new doctors here, and pleased to be joined by Lisa Stewart, who kindly joined us today. We had a wonderful reception with over 20 nurses and staff at the hospital for nearly an hour of a lunch and learn discussion. So great reception. Otherwise, just feeding into what Lisa's discussing, and certainly what I'm able to discuss. I'll maybe let you continue, and then I can maybe situate that in the context of our current crisis.
So I was just explaining a little bit about what a PA is and how this is not, we're not trying to rewrite anything here, that it's a proven trade that we employ here in Canada. We train PAs here in Canada, and there's almost 1,000 PAs that work across Canada, mostly in Ontario and Manitoba. Alberta is kind of going to be the next big, I guess, grower of PAs. The next school will be in Calgary. But how we're wanting to bring this trade here into BC, and we think that it could really help the situation here in Port Hardy, and not just Port Hardy, but across BC and across Canada. Truly, the healthcare crisis touches a lot of people, and this is just one avenue that can help be a solution to a problem.
Yeah, so certainly my background, I've worked in rural, remote Manitoba with physician assistants, and they are transformative in terms of expanding your medical capacity, right? And so we have a crisis in Port Hardy of medical capacity, and that's only going to get worse in terms of, even in the past day, we've had one of our physicians announce that he's not renewing his MOCAP, which means he will not be working Emerge beyond March, unless if Island Health significantly steps up and commits for locum physician funding and nursing funding. So that's a really big deal, right? And so in terms of what we need to do, we need to look at innovative new models of health delivery. And so I'm very clear in terms of my capacity and what I'm able to do and what I'm able to do with physician assistant support, because I've worked with physician assistants. We've interviewed a number of excellent physician assistants who are eager to relocate to British Columbia, specifically to the North Island, to work as a physician assistant. One specifically that we've selected, who's currently working in rural Alberta, and she's working in a community that's an Indigenous community. She's working and has worked for a number of months, nearly an hour from her physician support, right? So she has worked very autonomously, very capably. And so these are all, again, proven solutions, tools to our current medical health and human resource crisis. And the other thing that I think is important for council to know, right? These are community members, right? These are individuals that commit, unlike what we unfortunately have had, which is a revolving door of physicians and healthcare workers, where you don't get continuity. So, for example, the physician assistant I worked with in Dauphin, Manitoba, had been in the community for over 15 years. He started the main tennis tournament annually, the squash tournament. He was, revered and admired as Kevin Teely, the physician assistant who worked under doctors, right? So that's sort of how that model works. It would work very well in Northern Island communities. Dr. Troy McLeod, who's the new physician recruit in Alert Bay, who like me has purchased properties committed to the North Island communities, is speaking with the same voice as mine. He's very committed to using PAs once they become an option. I've spoken with and have confirmed verbal and written support from our member of parliament, Rachel Blaney, who's enthusiastic about PAs. Michelle Babchuk as well was enthusiastic and expressed that she'd be meeting and met the next day with Agent Dix. So I think, again, this is a problem with a solution that we're giving you. It is a political issue, and yourselves obviously are our political mandate and our voice. And so I certainly would not underscore the value of your voice in making this happen. Something that I've expressed as well is just the need in the bigger picture for our nursing staff, right, and for physician assistants in terms of accommodation, right, and that's something that I think you guys are well aware of. That's continuing to be a challenge, but that's related but secondary. So,
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much, both of you, for coming and the information. I presume that the holdback is funding, or is there something else?
I'm sorry.
What is the holdback from the health ministry?
No, I will pay for this, right? I'm very clear that this will more than pay for itself in my fee-for-service billings. I could readily hire 2 or 3 physician assistants and more than pay for them, right? In terms of the model of using physician assistants and otherwise, it means a physician, myself, Alex Naderis, could have a roster of 5, 6, 7,000 patients under my name with my team working under me. This is what happens in parts of New Zealand, happens around the world, right? This is the model that we need. The idea that we have physicians, again, every physician can choose and every physician's scope of practice is different. What I'm saying is what I'm trained to do is work with teams of physician assistants to manage a larger roster of patients than we're currently covering, right? We currently have a need in our current care delivery model for 7 full-time physicians in Port Hardy. We currently have 2.5, maybe 3, and we're losing the emerged capacity of 1, right? And so we need a new care delivery model. This is a new care delivery model that's proven across Canada, in the Canadian military, and around the world. And it's a crisis, right? I mean, everyone probably followed what happened with the young woman, the fire department chief in Nova Scotia, who tragically died at the end of December. And so that's going to happen here, and that's going to be on our hands if we don't do something. And that's the reality.
So what do you think? Funding must be the holdback from the Ministry of Health. So
No,
it's what is the holdback?
Yeah, so it's unfortunately, it's a lack of understanding of what a physician assistant is.
So the new trade, so to speak?
Correct. It's in BC, it's a new trade.
Right.
And again, the perception of the current government has been a commitment to a nurse practitioner approach. I work with lots of nurse practitioners. We have 2 in our community. They're fantastic, but it's different. A nurse practitioner is like a physician, an independent practitioner. Physician assistants are by definition dependent on the physician, right? So it's very different. Physician assistant doubles my set of hands, 2 to 4 to 6. So it allows me to be in Eagle Ridge Manor, as well as in Emerge, as well as in clinic, as well as Port Rupert, as well as BNN, right? So it allows capacity to be expanded exponentially. So no, it's not funding. It's just purely a lack of understanding. And that's why it's so important that we have our communities, our elected representatives communicate the value of this to the community, because the Minister of Health just can't understand it. He doesn't. I mean, it's fine. Like, this is not I'm not making a political statement here. I'm just saying there's someone who's not a clinician. And if you haven't practiced, I mean, for physicians, a big part of our work, like today at lunch, is to educate physicians and nurses and physios and occupational therapists as to the role of a physician assistant. I was very fortunate. I trained and worked with physician assistants in Manitoba, where they were founded, right, and where Lisa did her training.
Council Taxman?
No, I'm just gonna, just questions. So how new of a practice is this? Like, you know, see Manitoba's where it kind of blossomed, like how long ago?
Well, to be honest with you, in Canada, PAs have been working in the military for, oh gosh, 60
No, yeah.
odd years. And I think the origins are, just probably even a little bit older than that, like 80 years from the USA. Here in Canada, we've had practicing PAs nationally, but in with Canadian Forces or Canadian Armed Forces, and civilian PAs have been practicing in Manitoba was the start, and probably at least 20 years, maybe
Okay,
even closer to 25 years. CAPA or PAs have been appealing to government here in British Columbia for at least, I would say, 12 years, if
Wow.
not a little bit longer, to bring PAs into BC. Granted, 12 years ago, on the civilian side of things, it was very much a newer, definitely a new trade. It was starting to blossom. There was the three schools, I think, opened up about 12 to 14 years ago. And, so definitely things were a lot newer then. But we have since proven ourselves repeatedly and across Canada in different provinces. And there's really no reason why, and this trade is growing across Canada too. Saskatchewan is the next province that is not highlighted here, but is bringing in PAs. The current provinces that currently have PAs, like out east, they're just expanding their program even more. There's really no reason that the Ministry of Health should be waffling on this anymore.
Healthcare is inherently very conservative. That's not a bad thing, right? In terms of physicians particularly, where there's a new medication or treatment, we don't all swing to that. You may see things on Facebook or otherwise saying, you should try this, you should try that. But
Right.
healthcare and physicians as a regulated profession, we're very slow typically to adopt things. And as regulated professionals, that's our mandate, right? Is to ensure that it is a proven, right? It is
Yeah.
a proven tool or otherwise.
Yeah.
Similarly, the healthcare system is an even more conservative, slow-moving entity. We're in a crisis, right? And so like the Mandarin or Chinese symbol for crisis is also opportunity, right? This is a great opportunity. And I'm very confident that in 5 years in Port Hardy, we're not going to have a healthcare crisis.
Yeah.
Because there's a group of us that are committed to the North Island and committed to a new model of healthcare delivery that's going to change things.
Yeah.
But the old model doesn't work. And unfortunately, our current government is just struggling to see that change.
Yeah.
And we need the grassroots to communicate it because we're in a very unique position in the North Island. I've
Yeah.
locumed and worked around across BC in the past year. And so I've got a pretty good sense of the 5 different health authorities and otherwise. And we're unique here. This is uniquely well placed for this as a trial project.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what's the training? I just want to learn. What's the training involved for a PA as opposed to a physician, like a?
To be honest, it's very similar.
Yeah.
To a physician. Our training is modeled after a physician's training.
Right.
Our program, we pretty much need the same entry requirements. Most PA students have the same prerequisites that a med student needs to get into medical school.
Yeah.
And most PAs, when they get into PA school, already have degrees and already have experience in healthcare. They tend to be a little bit more older, experienced students, I would say. And the program itself is 24 months.
Yeah.
And we're affiliated with medical schools. We're taught by doctors, also other PAs.
Yeah.
And our first year is, in classroom learning.
Yeah.
Our second 12 months or second year is just rotations. Again, we're taught alongside of training doctors, medical students, and we're taught by doctors. And our practice model emulates that of physician's practice. Our approach is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Again, when we graduate, we're not doctors, but we've been taught to work alongside seamlessly with physicians.
Yeah.
Councillor Robertson.
Oh, go ahead, Vince. Yeah, no, okay. I do have a few questions. I mentioned to Lisa when we started, I'm a councillor with the District of Port Hardy. I'm also a constituency assistant with the MLA Michelle Babchuk in her local constituency office here. And she was invited tonight, but can't make it, so I'd identify myself as such.
Yeah, thanks.
So I have a few questions just about, well, first I'll start off with the colleges. I'm not clear who in other jurisdictions and who would you be looking at who would certify the PAs? I mean, when you look at, there's colleges, there's college nurses, there's physicians and surgeons, there's physiotherapists, and they're all self-regulating colleges and professions. How does a physician's assistant fit into that? Is that through physicians and surgeons, the College of Physicians and Surgeons?
No. In all the other provinces in Canada, I think just globally, physician assistants are regulated underneath the College of Physicians and Surgeons of that, well, here it would be BC, alongside of physicians.
Having sat on College of Teachers Council of BC, when you bring in a new category, it's not a straightforward thing. It's not easy. So where is the College of Physicians and Surgeons on this at this point?
So, and I've dealt with the college as all of us as physicians have to, more than I'd like, and they're challenging, right? I mean, it's a very slow moving, again, for us to get licensure, for us to get a new physician to come to Canada, it takes 6+ months just to get paperwork. Within 20 minutes of sending an email to Dr. Heidi Otter, who's the CEO and registrar of the College of Physicians and Surgeons of BC, she personally responded saying, we're fully in support of PAs. We can make this happen. All we need is the Minister of Health to say it's a go. So she was very clear, and it's a readily shareable email otherwise. But
Yeah, no, I would be, because I know from my experience with teachers, when you bring in, for instance, teaching assistants, which were not under the mandate of that council, it's not a straightforward thing. I mean, we can say that we're in favor of something, but to get from there to certifying somebody it's not an immediate process. So I'm just not clear where that process has gone at this point.
I'm not a teacher and I don't have that background, but what I can say is that as physicians, we're uniquely autonomous and uniquely self-regulated, and also uniquely my neck's on the line if I do something that is beyond the scale or scope, right? And so what I mean by that is the physician assistant quickly becomes under my license, which means quickly my ability to practice is on the line if that PA is out of bounds. So it's my responsibility is what I'm saying. So it's actually quite straightforward. So for
liability.
correct. So for example, today I had a medical resident, a second year UBC medical doctor who has, yes, her own liability insurance, but she's also practicing under my license. And she was with me in Emerge all day, right? So, and I've had a PRABC, which is a practice ready associate, internationally trained physician who also works under my license, medical students. So there's a very, there's a model there. So I think it's a lot more straightforward. That's why the college, again, being this relative dinosaur of an institution, was very efficient in responding.
Okay.
And we've seen in other provinces, it actually happens quite quickly, where the college can, change their rules and regulations to bring in physician assistants. The slow part is usually in the Ministry of Health, changing the Health Act. But that's, always a long-term kind of goal. That's
legislation doesn't happen quickly.
Yeah, legislation doesn't happen quickly, but generally, the College of Physicians and Surgeons, that generally happens quite quickly.
And that's not needed for a PA here.
So you don't think that the Health Act needs to change to, okay, well, that's good to know. Have the College of Nurses commented at all?
Not formally, we're meeting with them. But they've been providing education to nurses about what PAs are.
Mhm.
And have, extended a hand of interest, of which we'll, discuss further with them in
Mhm.
some subsequent meetings.
Because I suspect somewhere along the way there need to chime in as well. And so, and my last question is just how things are how the physician's assistant would work with the other thing that the province is looking at with associate physicians as well.
That's right. Do you want to speak to this, or I can speak to this?
Yeah, go ahead.
So exactly, this is a made to deliver model. Associate physicians, which if, for those that aren't aware, are basically a new class that's been introduced by the government, which is by the Premier AB, which is an excellent opportunity for basically internationally trained physicians who don't meet or, they aren't accepted into the small number of spots for international medical graduates. They can still work and share their skills rather than, say, drive taxi otherwise, right, in terms of applying their skills appropriately to our needs in the population. And so it would be under the same regulatory umbrella. So it's very seamless in terms of associate physicians and physician assistants would be under this within the same bracket. And so that's why Doctors of BC has been so outspoken in favor of physician assistants, not just for the past 10 years, but more immediately for the past months, because they've also highlighted that this new class of associate physicians would make that transition for the legislation to be clean.
I'm not familiar with the group Doctors for BC.
So Doctors of BC, it's the closest thing to a union that we have.
Okay,
It's
so
our representative body,
it's separate again from the
college.
college. Okay, yeah, no, good, thank you for that.
And I can say just from personal experience, working in other provinces, I've worked on a team, my team included international medically trained doctors. We call them clinical assistants in Alberta and Manitoba, nurse practitioners, other allied healthcare professionals, and we've worked together on a team, and generally it flows very seamlessly depending on what your role is.
Thank you for the presentation. It's really very informative.
Thank you. Councilor Dugas.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for being here and doing your presentation. It's awesome. I think it's a great opportunity. As long as we can convince somebody down in Victoria to get on board, that'd be awesome. One question I had though for you was, where do you actually take the education part of it now? Who provides that?
To become a PA?
Yeah.
The University of Manitoba Faculty of Medicine has a program, master's program. That's the program I took. There's two programs in Ontario, one affiliated with the University of Toronto and the other one with McMaster's. The next program that's in development will be affiliated with the University of Calgary, with their Faculty of Medicine. And I think there's talk about the next program after that will be in Saskatchewan. And so Saskatchewan is actually an interesting example of the health minister reviewed physician assistants and said, yes, we want PAs. The best way of implementing this trade is to grow them ourselves, to make it more sustainable, to expand this program. And so that's what they're currently working on right now. But yeah.
I think this is a tremendous opportunity for Port Hardy to show leadership in BC, right? This would be the first physician assistant in the province. We have more need, right? Port Hardy's been, as you know, much better than I do, front and center in the news for far too long in terms of lack of medical capacity. So this is an innovation. This is an opportunity for leadership of council. And in terms of education and otherwise, Simon Fraser University has an announced new medical school going in. They, as my alma mater, I know, they are, committed to innovative grassroots, non-UBC style approaches. It would be, and there are people that I'm aware of in the health sciences faculty there that would be very open to having a school of physician assistants, for example. So again, things will move very quickly once we get the first physician assistant in place, because it's a model that's proven and it's a no-brainer.
So we have a plan in place for one in Port Hardy. There's somebody of interest.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of that convincing them to do a pilot here?
That's
Is that,
Just
that's the
to,
intent?
just to say, go,
Yeah, that's,
I'll pay, I'll take care of everything, and we just, everything will fall into place, but we need, again, the clearance.
Council Ticker.
So what I'm hearing now is that you would like a letter of support.
yes. We plan on, submitting our own proposal to,
But it helps if,
Yeah.
if everybody puts in a letter of
Exactly.
support.
So, for example, Rachel Blaney is committed to
Yeah.
a letter of support, for example, so these are all key pieces,
Mhm.
for sure.
But this council can
Correct,
do that too.
correct.
Council Smith.
Thank you so much. What an incredible opportunity for the North Island that you're bringing us a solution that is amazing. And is there anything else that we can do to help support you on this, to help bring that pilot project to the North Island, which I think that we would all very much benefit from? Other than a letter of support, if there's, anything we can do, we have,
We're open ears.
we'll
Something
definitely.
that we all are fighting towards resolving too.
Yeah.
So, exactly. No, I mean, I think having us is a huge step. So having us, I know the North Island Gazette's watching and otherwise, and so all of this is real time, right? So, the progress that we've had with the First Nations Health Authority and meetings last week, and our First Nations communities are very actively exploring this. I think ultimately that's actually going to be our path to success, and so the leadership at this table helps strengthen that case.
Have you been to the bands for letters of support as well?
That's part of the meetings that we've had with the First Nations Health Authority, and so, exactly, so I'll sort of let them, individual communities speak to their own support, if I can speak on that.
Council Texman.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned it before you showed up here, just kind of getting to know you and everything. I just want to thank you
Mhm.
for everything you're doing, how invested you are in the community and bringing something like this, in a time that is like, it's almost like it's perfect timing, right? But like, yeah, it's just amazing. I just want to thank you for all your time. And I know that you're working tirelessly, both of you guys. This is great. So for me, thank you very much. I'm sure from everybody too.
Well, thanks for building a beautiful community, right? You guys have laid the groundwork for this to be possible, and I mean that. So it is a special community, and like all communities, it has challenges, but,
Any other questions, comments? So I'd like to echo my thanks, Dr. Materos and Lisa for coming up here and doing the presentation. And thank you for joining our community and building a house in it.
thanks for doing my electrical.
And just so you know that, I have been talking to a number of people about physician assistants and learning more about it as well. And we will continue talking, and we'll discuss doing a letter of support as well, after this committee. But if we do a letter of support, would you want us to give it to you to send on in your application, or would you want it to be separate and then we'll copy you on it?
Well, I mean, I honestly am uncertain of the best way to submit it. I think, it can come directly from you, but, the timing might be nice if we could kind of time them to be submitted similarly. I can make that happen.
I think to include us in it, and then we can include it with your consent in the package, but also you to submit it, and then, once it's public record, we can, in our own political channels, make use of it.
Okay, okay. So thank you very much for
Okay,
coming.
thanks very
and
much,
giving
guys.
us time. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
You too, tonight. Motion to adjourn. Council Dugas, thank you. All right,